Welcome to the movie. This week, we're going to be talking a brand new special thing that should become a movie. And I'm going to just say it right off the bat, this shirt might be somewhat of a sign. Close, but not quite. I want to make Creepy into a movie. And, it's just right here. I didn't plan this at all. But, yeah, anyways, Creepy is if you don't know anything about Creepy, basically, it's old comics from the 50s, 60s. I think it ran for quite a while. This is volume 13. I have volume 1. Creepy was basically all the horror comics. It was kind of an issue you got monthly of just different horror comics, and I think it would make for a great anthology movie. Any thoughts?
Yeah, anthology movies are some of my favorite ones that have come out recently in the horror genre. Most recent that I think most people remember is the VHS anthology. You get a lot of other ones kind of centered around holidays. I know we had Southbound not that long ago, but VHS part 1 and 2 are some of my favorites to this day. I still remember those and enjoy watching those and wish they continued. So I think Creepy actually is a good idea. Whether it is a TV show or a movie, that would be a great idea to bring into the cinema. I feel like
Anthologies, first off, have been maybe haven't been successful. I think there's a reason that they haven't been successful lately, but we see a lot of them. So they must be successful in some type of capacity, just not in the capacity of what I think Trick or Treat could have been if it was really. It was huge on DVD sales, but it didn't go theatrical. So I think it could have been huge theatrically, especially coming out on Halloween. I would want to gear this to a Halloween type of release, and I have the studio that's perfect for it, and it would be returned to their roots, which they have since forgotten. Lionsgate. Okay. Where did Lionsgate Horror go? It just disappeared. That was a studio that was built on horror movies, and then they just kind of forgot about it. Right. I mean, it could possibly be that Summit had purchased Lionsgate, and then they weren't interested in horror. But Lionsgate was always a predominantly horror studio. Then they kind of went into comedies with a lot of long-forgotten Ryan Reynolds comedies.
No, you're right.
Right.
But now I think it could be a perfect return to them. There is not that much competition, I think, in the horror market. Really, all you have is Blumhouse turning these little, $1-2 million movies into features and then getting a huge return because he didn't spend any money on it.
Right, yeah.
I think other studios should be taking notes from what he's doing, but maybe spend a little bit more money, or don't especially make it way too cheap that I don't know.
Right.
I think that there could be a good mid-budget range that someone could do a movie like this for, that it wouldn't look cheap, but I think Creepy would have a great concept because you could do something. The way I'd want to tell the story is basically some kids in modern times would basically find a time capsule or something in the backyard, and all it has is maybe a couple different creepy issues or something, and they're basically reading the stories at night, ghost stories essentially. They're reading the comic books under their covers, and the stories are coming to life. But they're kind of, since it's an anthology movie, they're kind of the bookend story of maybe the monster, a monster would be coming to life in their story, but also you have them telling each other the stories that they're reading in the Creepy comic.
Right, yeah.
So that's the bookend kind of thing. And you could have it be an anthology film with about 5 stories.
Yeah.
So at least I feel with the success of The Walking Dead, horror's been huge on TV, not so much in movies. Aside from, Get Out was huge last year.
As well as It.
So maybe this is the time. I honestly forgot about it, but you're right. It was a huge box office thing. We could put a clown in one of the stories. If you think that that's the formula for success in horror is clowns, throw one in the story. It's an anthology movie. Throw in some of the classic monsters like a werewolf, maybe Dracula, or some type of vampire story. So yeah, horror's been really successful with Walking Dead, American Horror Story, which was an anthology, and also, Scream Queens, all those things that horror, people love horror, but there's just not the place for them to go see it. And with a Creepy movie, I think it would be perfect to bring that back in cinemas. And also, let's not release it in September. Get cold feet and release it in August like people always do with horror movies.
I don't know why everyone's so scared of October. Saw's coming out. We can't go up against Saw.
Yeah, I think that Creepy would make an interesting horror movie nowadays, be an anthology movie that actually goes to theaters and do some type of wide release. I'm not asking for like a big budget, but maybe like mid-range budget
Right.
for this, I think could do well and could, return Lionsgate to its roots.
Right.
Something like that. And who would be best to do this for us? Adam Green. I think that he would be an interesting pick. We got, he's done some anthology horror. He definitely has mastered in horror. But I would like to see like a type of old school classic vibe that I think this creepy movie could have.
Yeah.
Like just kind of stick to the old school like horror. Because a lot of the comics, like I was reading through the book last night, a lot of them aren't even that scary, to be honest. Like we'd probably try and pick the best ones.
Right, yeah.
But have more of a classic feel to it. And I think he'd be an interesting pick, being that he's like always pretty much done horror.
Right. And can control budget too as well.
I think he would keep it low, but also make it look like it's a lot more than it is, Like I think there are directors out there that work for Blumhouse that the end product does look a little bit cheaper than something that's more done on an independent scale, like like Adam Green, that it looks a lot more expensive than maybe the budget actually was.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that was one thing he always did great with his movies. I kind of like I was getting excited thinking about it, and someone who I miss working today, who has never really worked in horror, but I feel like he can make it work, is Adam McKay. Going with another Adam. Adam McKay, if you guys don't know, is the guy who did like Step Brothers, mainly known for doing a lot of Will Ferrell movies, but he has a lot of range. He did like The Big Sick. That was his most recent.
Not Big Sick, Big Short.
Or Big Short, thank you. Yeah. Not The Big Sick, yeah. Not the one starring Kumail, but yeah, so that was a while ago. I'm sure he's done other projects, but I haven't been hearing about them. And I just feel like he might have a knack for horror films, I feel like. I don't know why. I just get that feel.
I get that vibe from a lot of the Will Ferrell movies that have like a dark comedy, like Step Brothers, when there's scenes where they're like, hey, I hate you and stuff. Like it just has like a dark element to it. I definitely feel like he's a director that was pigeonholed as like, oh, he could only direct Will Ferrell movies.
Right, yeah.
Then he just comes out with The Big Short and everyone's just like, I can't quite, like you could do anything you want. He seems like someone that's great at breaking those walls that people try and put you in.
And he's actually great also at like framing like action scenes also, like because we've seen a lot of like fight scenes in Anchorman or the race scenes in Talladega Nights. They're impressive, so I feel like he can really figure out like what shots kind of creep people out, and him working with comedy, I feel like he can bring a really cool comedy element to the kids that you're talking in your movie, like make it better and more believable than it. Like some jokes were funny in that movie, but it kind of felt a little weird coming from them. But
I would definitely want like a Monster Squad-esque feel with the book-ended story where it's like it's these kids that are smoking cigarettes or just getting into trouble, like getting into trouble. They find this time capsule or maybe a box or something in the backyard. They're digging holes and find like a creepy comic. I don't want it to have that goosebump element of like, oh, it's a comic that came to life necessarily, but it's like they find the comic that has the stories that are the anthology of the movie, which I guess Creepshow is kind of essentially like that, but there's no real bookend to Creepshow. It's just the flipping of pages of this comic book,
Yeah.
So I think it would have that element, and I think like horror is kind of, no one really wants to do like that classic horror feel, and I think that could be, really something that people would be excited to go see during Halloween. And I think a lot of that has been lost for some reason at the theater. There's no excitement around Halloween time for the movies that get released. It's like Saw, and that only appeals to Saw fans. Like, you don't go see Saw. You don't go see Saw if you haven't seen any other ones. Like there's no excitement really at the theater. For honestly the past 5 to 10 years, the best horror movies haven't come out around then because no one's willing to have the balls to release them during Halloween. I don't know.
No, I agree.
I think you're right about it actually being really successful coming out before, but where the cojones, I've had anthology horror on the brain lately, and that's mainly because I've been reading. You have yours here, so I was just going to show House of Waxwork. This is an awesome comic. I just always, like, literally, if you look at my Twitter, it's probably just me tweeting about, Waxworks comics. But what's awesome about these comics is it comes with a little record. You put the record on, spin it, and you read the story to it. But this is an anthology horror comic book. There's only 2 issues out right now. Definitely recommend it. If you have a record player, check this out. Like, this is so much fun. And instead of, adapting this, I felt, let's go to the original. Let's go to Creepy Comics. That was the original horror anthology serial. So this, I think, like, having this on the brain, that's kind of what inspired me to do Creepy. And I mean, if you enjoy Creepy Comics or you enjoy the movie Creepshow, definitely check out these comics. I just wanted to give them a plug because I'm enjoying it that much. It's House of Waxworks comic books, so check those out. You can get it on their website. Anyways, guys, that's it for the movie this week. This is our episode on Creepy the movie.